A woman in the crowd said to him, "Blessings on the womb that bore you, and the breast that fed you." He said to her, "Blessings on those who have heard the word of the Father, and have truly kept it. For there will be days when he will say, 'Blessings on the womb that has not conceived, and the breasts that have not given milk.'" Whoever does not hate father and mother as I do cannot be a disciple of me. And whoever does not love father and mother as I do cannot be a disciple of me. For my mother gave me falsehood, but my true mother gave me life. For this cause, therefore, have I in this manner brought the mysteries into this world, which undo all the bonds of the counterfeiting spirit, and all the seals which are bound to the soul, those which make the soul free, and free it from its parents, the rulers, and make it into refined light, and lead it up into the kingdom of its Father, the first issue, the first mystery, forever. For this cause, therefore, have I said unto you aforetime, he who does not abandon father and mother, and come and follow after me, is not worthy of me. I have therefore said at that time, ye are to abandon your parents, the rulers, that I may make you sons of the first mystery forever. Now, therefore, the rulers seal the counterfeiting spirit to the soul, but so that it does not agitate it at every hour, making it do all sins and all iniquities. And they give commandment moreover unto the counterfeiting spirit, saying, if the soul cometh out of the body, do not agitate it, being assigned to it and transferring it to all the regions of the judgments, region by region, on account of all the sins which thou hast made it do, in order that it may be chastised in all the regions of the judgments, so that it may not be able to go on high to the light, and return into changes of the body. Now, therefore, when the servitors of the rulers cast the one portion into the woman, and the other into the man, in the fashion which I have told you, then the servitors secretly compel them, even if they are removed at very great distance from one another, so that they concert to be in a concert of the world, and the counterfeiting spirit which is in the man cometh to the portion which is entrusted to the world in the matter of his body, and lifteth it, and casteth it down into the womb of the woman, into the portion which is entrusted to the seed of wickedness. Simon Peter said to them, Mary should leave us, for females are not worthy of life. Jesus said, Look, I shall guide her to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit, resembling you males. For every female who makes herself male will enter heaven's kingdom. I've been listening to a fair amount of Eastern Orthodox content lately, for whatever reason. And one thing that seems to be quite consistent is on the topic of Gnosticism and I suppose concerning the refutation of heresies in general, what they perceive to be heretical in any case, their default response in terms of how to combat this issue, in how to combat the heretic, is to direct the heretic to the scriptures, to the Bible, in order to see what the scriptures say about such and such matter that the orthodox individual perceives the heretic to be basically heretical upon, hold a heretical view upon. But what also seems to have become clear to me in these listenings, in this exposure to this orthodox content, and the ideas that are unpacked therein, is that what they mean typically by the scriptures, the wisdom of the scriptures, right? The infallible truth of the scriptures, the word of God that is preferred in the scriptures, is quite often not the words of Christ, the words of the individual, of the being that whose namesake is their religion is sort of based upon, right? It's sort of conversely is the words of the church fathers. It's the epistles. That is typically what is meant by referring to the scriptures on X or Y matter, is the epistles. And these orthodox individuals, they say that they try and present themselves as being incredibly humble and say, who do I think I am to think that I know better than Paul or, Saint Augustine or whatever, right? Some saint or church father, or the apostles even, right? Who am I to think that I know better than them simply because I hold a book in my hands? But my thoughts when I hear that, immediate thoughts anyway, are that, well, who's to say that the church fathers, the apostles, or some sort of arbitrarily denominated saint is more of an authority than the Christ, right? The very person that they're sort of speaking for. My position has always been on the matter of Christianity is to refer directly to the words of the individual that the religion itself is sort of predicated upon, not the words of some random, essentially. And yeah, of course, it's debatable as to whether or not this Christ individual existed as a historical figure, and even if he did, these words are sort of attributable to him and not the sort of amalgamation of different ideas, philosophies. A lot of Greek philosophy is very clearly infused throughout the sayings of the Christ. But regardless of that, take as a given that he was a historical individual and he did say these things. Why would we not simply refer to what he said on X matter? And it's my understanding that when we do, that is what we do, a very different picture begins to emerge of what Christianity actually is, and how a Christian should actually be in the world as it is today. And something that also, basically, to get to the point of this video, basically, is that what reveals itself is that Christ is not for childbirth, for the perpetuation of the species. Basically, he is kind of a de facto antinatalist. And admittedly, yeah, I've drawn upon a lot of the apocryphal scriptures, the apocryphal texts, the Gnostic texts, as people like to call them. But I would also make the argument that even just looking at the canonical scriptures, not only is Christ basically Gnostic, right, as he would be, appears fairly similarly, if not entirely, as he does in the apocryphal Gospels, but he's also most certainly not for children or for like this world in any way whatsoever, right? At the very least, he's quite clearly a sort of child-free. He's embodying this this sage archetype, one who has renounced the world, who is completely sort of independent of it. They're free of this karmic debt that is going to manifest itself in the sort of inevitable perpetuation of themselves through their progeny. The Buddha, of course, he had a child before he became liberated, but thereafter it was not something that was possible. He also was not for natalism. Monks following him, at least, were encouraged to engage in celibacy. So there's that also. Yeah, and so I'll say one problem with that I found anyway with discussing these this idea of the antinatalist Christ, the ideas or the words that are attributed to this antinatalist Christ, right? When one sort of presents these to people, one has to sort of adopt a kind of defensive position almost immediately, as it sort of one is taken to be a misogynist, right? Because I suppose, well, I guess it's evidence of the fact that this desire that this world has for us to perpetuate ourselves within it is so deeply ingrained, and the way that it sort of manifests itself is that we take that into ourselves unknowingly and perceive it as being our own desire. We serve as conduits for our own undoing, basically, is one way of putting it. We're facilitating our own misery by believing that, or adopting this, of marrying ourselves to this instinctive drive and perceiving it as being our own, as taking it into our core and seeing it as a core desire of our own, when it's something separate to that which we fundamentally are. That's my view anyhow. That which we fundamentally are is independent of our biology. It's independent of all that we can perceive with our conventional senses. And so when one presents these ideas, they seem to be very misogynistic, and particularly women will be very much offended by them, particularly the latter of the quotations that I used at the beginning is very anti-female, seemingly, right? But usually what I sort of, when confronted with this, in order to sort of defuse the situation, I try to reason with them and point towards what is actually, as I understand it, being said, and try and sort of highlight a more the more broader sense of how I perceive things to be in terms of gender and sex and so on. So I put it like this, that not becoming female, that one should seek to not become female, because to be female is to participate within this world, to create things within this world, things that are going to be, by their very nature, temporal, perishable, and subject to the sufferings that are riddled throughout this world, that is the very substance, the very texture of this world. It's a necessary precondition of its manifesting. And furthermore, this idea of sex and gender, I see it as being something that people become lamentably hung up on to, again, their own detriment. It's another suffering, another aspect of Maya that one would do better to sort of see through, and in some small way take another step towards liberating themselves. Because as I perceive it, what one fundamentally is beyond physicality. It's beyond this aspect of gender. The essence of oneself is genderless. And I'm not talking about this sort of contemporary non-binary concept. Because again, to reiterate, this has nothing to do with physicality. It's nothing to do with the perceivable world. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. It's more, well, I have this quote here or brief passage from the Kybalion, which sort of illustrates a little bit of what I'm talking about, and it sort of, corroborates other things that I've previously discussed here, so I'll just get to it, and then maybe if I have any further comments, I'll address them then, but if not, I think this might be it in terms of what I have to say here on this topic. So, here we go. We accept and teach the view of the great Hermetic thinkers of all times, as well as those illumined souls who have reached higher planes of being, both of whom assert that the inner nature of the all is unknowable. This must be so, for naught by the all itself can comprehend its own nature and being. The Hermeticists believe and teach that the all in itself is and must be unknowable. They regard all the theories, guesses, and speculations of the theologians and metaphysicians regarding the inner nature of the all as but childish efforts of mortal minds to grasp the secret of the infinite. Such efforts have always failed and will always fail, from the very nature of the task. One pursuing such inquiries travels around and around in the labyrinth of thought until he is lost to all sane reasoning, action or conduct, and is utterly unfitted for the work of life. He is like the squirrel which frantically runs around and around the circling treadmill wheel of his cage, travelling ever and yet reaching nowhere. At the end, a prisoner still, and standing just where he started. And still more presumptuous are those who attempt to ascribe to the all the personality, qualities, properties, characteristics, and attributes of themselves, ascribing to the all the human emotions, feelings, and characteristics, even down to the pettiest qualities of mankind, such as joyous susceptibility to flattery. Sorry, that was jealousy. susceptibility to flattery and praise, desire for offerings and worship, and all the other survivals from the days of the childhood of the race. Such ideas are not worthy of grown men and women, and are rapidly being discarded. And, so if you're at all familiar with the Kybalion, you would know that my quoting of this in relation to this topic of gender is sort of somewhat running somewhat in contradiction to the overall ideas that are presented in the Kybalion, at least as I understand it. But I guess I'm somewhat of a cherry picker, right? But I don't know, maybe just consider it as being something separate to the Kybalion, to Hermeticism, and just take it at face value, right, in relation to what I'm saying. Okay, thanks for listening.